Try not to hold me down, feel alive when I'm in this town. Look at these beautiful stars, I wanna drive a faster car. Nothing can break me, no, nothing can break me. Try.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to the 4th episode of Find Your Wild. Okay, so if you've been following this Find Your Wild series, you'll know that we know why we're doing it, you know what the law is around it, and also what the guidelines we should follow whilst we're out there adventuring or wild camping. You want to start packing to go on your adventure, but you got to know what to pack for, right? So how do you know where to actually start adventuring? Hopefully this checklist will massively help you to make sure that you don't go to somewhere that ends up being an absolute dud.
Disappointed!
Number 1, it massively depends on what your adventure aims are. Are you looking for a huge physical challenge, in which case you're looking at mountains and hills, or are you looking at just reconnecting with nature, getting away from humans?
It's time I let the world know what an awful species we were.
If you're looking at getting away from other human beings, you're going to look at remoteness, aren't you? So you got to think about what you're trying to adventure for. Right, now you know what your aim is for your adventure, now you know why you're going out on an adventure. It's all about location. Location, location, location. Not that I've ever seen the show. Again, this depends on where you live. It depends on what your method of transport is. Are you going to be using public transport, or are you going to be driving there? How much time do you have? Are you going for a day trip? Are you going for a week? All of this is going to have massively impact how far you can travel. So once you know how far you can realistically travel, all you need to do is look for an area in that radius which marries up with your adventure aims. We've now got a location, we've got a general area on where we want to go. Now it's time to get inspired by that area. The easiest way to get inspired is just to do a tiny little bit of research. That half an hour research that you do before you leave can massively determine what you're going to plan, where you're going to go in that area. This research can come from hundreds of different ways. Now, if you are competent, very comfortable with maps, then you can pretty much get what you need to know from a map on what the area is going to be like. Now, if you are just beginning, you might not have those map skills ready. You might be wanting to look at some books which will give you loads of ideas, really, really in-depth analysis in the area. Social media is another great way to get inspired. You can go on YouTube and watch videos of the whole adventures that you might want to be playing out. Ask people on Facebook and Instagram for advice on local areas. There are loads of groups set up for individual areas and for the UK as a whole. But sometimes we just want to go somewhere and explore. Now that is perfectly okay too. Don't feel the need to do the research. Just know that it's a bigger risk. Now we're inspired and we've got that adventure feeling flowing through our veins. It's time to get realistic. As a man who's constantly being silly and stupid,
But I'm not having things getting silly.
this part is actually quite important. Giving yourself 5 minutes to think about what your plan is, to think about what you want to do, and make sure it's realistic before you set off. There's nothing worse than going on an adventure that's miles and miles and miles away and then having to turn around after 2 hours because you just didn't think before you left. I've done it, it sucks, but there we are. When you're thinking about being realistic, you need to think about your health, you need to think about your fitness, you need to think about the equipment you've got, you need to think about what the weather might be like. Little tip for this, don't overthink it too much. If you do want to attempt something that's slightly out of your comfort zone, please go for it. Just make sure you've got a plan B. Speaking of planning, that's step 5.
Good evening, ladies.
Right, darling! What's the plan? What I tend to do when it comes to planning is I'll grab my map, I find a car park nearby, and then I just start penciling in a route, which I think looks quite nice. If you're not very comfortable with a map and compass though, which I don't expect everyone to be, because let's face it, GPS on a phone is way easier. Route planning itself is a massive subject and we're not going to go too much into it today, but just so you know, there are lots of apps out there like All Trails or OS Maps, which give you all these pre-planned routes and also offer GPS guided navigation when you're out there. Just make sure you know that the signal might drop and you have an idea on what the route is before you actually go. Now, a lot of times people really get worried about, are they actually allowed to adventure where they're adventuring? If you're not too clued up on the law, please go back and check out that Is It Legal episode. I think it was episode 2. So you can get a better idea on what the trespass laws are and more particularly around what wild camping laws are. In terms of general adventuring though, you are pretty spoilt for choice because in England and Wales, we have got the right to roam law. Scotland has it as well, it's just theirs is way better than England and Wales's. Now in England and Wales, there are 5,686.4 square miles of open access land. This covers about 8% of England and Wales. Open access land means you can explore anywhere within the boundaries of that open access land. You do not need to stick to footpaths. Now, alongside of the 5,500 square miles of right to roam land, there are 140,000 miles worth of footpath. You can go on any of these public footpaths at any point you want. Scotland's right to roam laws are a lot more liberal, and it's pretty much across the whole country you have the right to roam as long as you are following the guidelines and you're being responsible. I will also say there are some open access land which is open for most of the time, but sometimes it may be closed. I'm thinking of places like Dartmoor where there's military training ground. So that little bit of research you do beforehand can make sure you don't end up walking across a simulated battlefield. Although that would be a hell of an adventure. There's your checklist on where you want to go. What's the aim of the adventure? What's the general location going to be? Time to get inspired, do a bit of research. 10 minutes of being realistic. Start your planning, and then just check that you are actually allowed in that area. Once you've done all that, pack your bags. Time for an adventure. If you want to know what to take for an adventure, that's coming in the next episode. So that's it from me. My last top tip on where you should go adventuring is to get involved in that adventuring community. Join the groups on Facebook and Instagram. Comment on YouTube. Ask questions. That's where the inspiration can come from. Read more, ask more, comment more. So I hope these tips have been useful, and I hope you get to go out there and try exploring new areas. If it has been useful to you, please give it a like. If you want to see more of this or other videos of me going out and doing stupid crap, give the channel a subscribe. And if there's anything you use in particular to get inspired or to find new areas to explore, please whack it in the comments below. Right, I think that's it from me. Till the next one, have fun finding your wild.